One late night at the end of February 1987, after finishing my homework, I was ready to turn off the lights and go to bed. Suddenly, in my mind, I visualized someone came at the risk of driving in the cold, who was a woman in her 30s, with a chubby elderly lady in the back seat, holding a little boy of about 5 years old. Auntie N. I immediately recognized the elderly lady. She came to me so late at night. It must be an emergency. Who on earth is sick? It was her grandson who was sick. I saw the child lying in the elderly lady's arms with a sick complexion on his face, and he was very sick. When Grandma N came to my door, I had been waiting for them at the door. Is the child sick? Is it? I asked her. The old lady said in astonishment, yes, yes. You have seen it, Bodhisattva Faun? Don't call me Bodhisattva, just call me layman, I said. The N family always calls me Bodhisattva, and I asked them many times to correct themselves, but they couldn't, and I am embarrassed. Anyone with a compassionate heart is a Bodhisattva. We think you are a Bodhisattva, said the elderly Mrs. N. It's useless to talk to her again, and I had better check the child's illness for her before I say anything. This little boy, whose English name is Philip, 5 years old, used to come with his maternal grandma, Mrs. N. He is also a child who automatically kneels and joins his palms in worshipping the statue of Buddha when seeing it. The last time he came, he went forward and knelt under the altar of Buddha by himself. Strangely enough, he does not live with his grandma, and his parents are both Catholic. 1 year ago, when his parents came to our house with elderly Mrs. N for a New Year greeting, all the members of the N family worship Buddha, but not this young lady and her husband, and I immediately knew that they were Catholic. The couple also disallowed their children to worship Buddha. So at that time, little Philip dared not worship Buddha. He was not yet 4 years old when he stuck poorly to his mother's side and eagerly looked at me. Since then, their parents have never come again. But this time, Philip's mother also came, which is strange. Bodhisattva Faun? Miss N cried as soon as she sat down. It was strange that even this Catholic called me a Bodhisattva. Please save my child. The doctor said we have to send him to the hospital tomorrow for inpatient treatment, with general anesthesia and an incision to insert a tube. You would never imagine that this devout and stubborn Catholic lady would humbly plead with a Buddhist in tears. Motherly love has triumphed over her religious beliefs in her heart and also overcome her usual self-esteem. She has given up all self-esteem and came to me, a Buddhist, for help. What a touching motherly love she has. Miss N burst into a flood of tears, sobbing uncontrollably, and said, "My son has been unable to open his mouth to eat for 5 days. We've been to several doctors, but they couldn't find out what was wrong. I prayed to God, day and night, but to no avail. I was helplessly watching my son starve to death, and I had no other way out. The doctor said I have to send him to the hospital tomorrow for an operation and diagnosis under general anesthesia. How dangerous it is." Bodhisattva Faun, I had no choice but to ask my mother to bring me here to beg you. You must save my son's life. She knelt down and bowed to me. Grandma N was also in tears and knelt down together to plead with me, so I panicked and immediately helped them up. I said, "Don't bow to me, a mere mortal, bow to Avalokitesvara. You go and worship Avalokitesvara first. Let me see how the child is doing," and we prayed to Avalokitesvara together to save him. But if you don't want to bow, no need to force yourself, you don't have to change your belief. In order to rescue her son, this Catholic mother listened to me and bowed to Avalokitesvara with me. What a great and touching motherly love she has. She even sacrificed her religious belief just to save her son's life. I was deeply moved, and I had to save this child's life. The child had not eaten food for 5 days. If starved for another day, he would probably die. I closed my eyes and saw it, and I immediately understood. This child is also a born non-meat eater. His parents love him and give him meat every day, buying him McDonald's beef burgers, which he refuses to eat. This time, he goes on a hunger strike and just doesn't speak. He refuses to open his mouth to eat, and even when his mother offered him milk, he refused to open his mouth. My goodness! I was moved to tears. I said, this child has long-standing wisdom, and he is a fetal vegetarian. You parents force him to eat meat, but he refuses to eat. This time, he has a hunger strike. The child's mother said, no wonder every day he refuses to eat more. We give him lots of good meat, fish and chicken, but he is reluctant to eat, and only likes to eat a few fruits and vegetables. That's why he is too thin to grow up. After saying that, she kept crying again. He'll starve to death, Bodhisattva Faun, please save his life. Don't you cry? Thankfully, you brought him here in time, I said. If you delay until tomorrow, I'm afraid he is going to die of hunger. If he was sent to the hospital, he would have been killed by the anesthetic. Fortunately, you didn't send him there. Grandma said, yeah, I objected to sending him to the hospital for surgery, to make an incision in the esophagus. I just don't trust them, and I want to ask Bodhisattva Faun to see it first. Can you save my son? The eldest Missy asked me in tears. I said, I want you to promise me 2 things, and I will save him. Besides, you must stop crying, which messes with my mind. I promise I will do everything you said. She stopped tears right away. First, I forbid you to force him to eat meat in the future, and I want you to let him eat vegetarian food as his wish, I said. Further, I request that you will not force him to be Catholic. I want you to let him choose his own religion. He likes to worship Buddha, so let him do it. I promise you everything. The lady said in tears, as long as you save my son's life, I even convert myself to Buddhism too. That's up to you, I said, I respect your religious belief. With tears streaming down her face, Grandma gave me the child, Bodhisattva Faun. Please see how my grandson is doing. The poor boy looked up at me with his mouth closed and no words, tears in his eyes. He refused meat by actually going on a hunger strike. Does this little boy not make many worldly people feel ashamed? Don't you cry. The child still has a chance. We don't need to send him to the hospital for anesthesia and surgery, I said. I can cure him right away. He'll be fine as soon as I touch him. I secretly chanted the mantra, injecting my psychic power into the child, and my fingers touched his brain. Then I said, boy, you can open your mouth and eat food now. I'll give you fruit to eat. Thank you, Bodhisattva Faun. The child suddenly opened his mouth, and his mother wept again with joy. I carried him to the kitchen, gave him fruit, and asked his mother to cut open the orange and squeeze orange juice for him. I gave it to him, and he drank it all as told. Strange. I gave him a drink at home, but he wouldn't drink it, said his mother. Why does he listen when you give him something to drink? He won't eat even if the doctor gives him food. I didn't answer but gently fed the child orange juice. I said, Philip, good boy, drink the orange juice. Do you know that you didn't eat for 5 days, and you could starve to death? You haven't pooped for 7 days. I will tell you to poo, or you will get poo poison. The child understood everything. I touched his little belly. You're going to poop later. His mother said, he hasn't had a bowel movement in days. How do you get him to do it? You see, I said. 10 minutes later, the child said, Mommy, my stomach hurts, I want to poop. That night his mother and grandma rushed to take him home. An hour later, they called to say, the boy has already relieved his stool. He was hungry and wanted to eat by himself. We listened to your words and dared not to give meat, but only gave him fruit and vegetables. He ate it all with gusto, and ate a lot. I already knew that, I smiled. Don't worry. The boy is fine, and you don't need to send him to the hospital tomorrow for an operation. I don't understand why people have to send the children to the hospital to get general anesthesia, insertion of an esophagus mirror, and surgery. That is to make a fuss over a trifling matter. These doctors, they are terrible. How can a sound child suffer from so many surgeries? Sometimes I doubt what's going on with some of the doctors in Canada. On the evening of Avalokitesvara's birthday, I held a big worship service in the Buddha Hall in my house and recited the chapter of the Universal Door. I did not announce it, but 60 to 70 people automatically came to participate, and they all ever came to me for help. I led them to pray to Avalokitesvara, and they were mercifully blessed by the Bodhisattva to overcome their hardship. Everyone has a miraculous story of being saved by Avalokitesvara, and I can't record it all in my book. Grandma N and her children came, and also the eldest Missy, bringing little Philip with her. The eldest Missy knelt under the Buddha altar and recited the Universal Door chapter with us. The boy had recovered and restored to health. He knelt beside me and worshipped with his palms together in a very solemn manner. This boy was so beautiful and adorable, and all the guests admired him.